Amoroso, who is the director of the Central Division for the Titans Volleyball Club. We're just still waiting on Dr. Thomas Lamb from FITS. I'm assuming if you're all Titans athletes here that many of you know Thomas and have possibly been to FITS to do some training. And I believe he's going to come in and we're going to chat about the new app that FITS has to help out athletes, especially during this time. I can't imagine what it would be like to be an athlete right now. It's hard enough being an adult, and I don't have to be active anymore.
Well, I think youth athletes are about as tough as they come, and I think I've been really enlightened to see all the different ways that athletes have found to not only keep themselves busy, but also keep themselves competition ready, game ready, getting better, finding ways to keep making progress and growth in any area you have this deficiency. If a coach has ever told you that, hey, this is an area that if you were physically stronger or more mobile in this area, or if you spend more time paying attention to these things, you would get better. If you've used any amount of the last 10 months of time to do that, then you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else who hasn't. And I think that's been a great opportunity that people have taken advantage of. But I think that's also going to be some of the stuff we're going to get into on this call, which I'm always excited to talk about. Athletes that want to pursue the next level, whatever that might be. If you're in a B team moving to an A team, if you have aspirations to play on high performance teams, aspirations to play post-secondary, or just aspirations to get from where you're at now to where you want to get in the sport. Those are my favorite kinds of athletes to work with, so I'm always keen for that. Just taking a look at the group, I don't see Thomas in yet, so maybe let's give it one more minute, and then we'll jump in and I can cover the aspects of Titans future programming and the Central Division as well before we get into his talk on the app.
Perfect.
So let's give him one more minute.
Absolutely. I think I may have just gotten another a message from him. Hopefully I didn't just leave there, but yeah, I mean, I know that taking my fitness into account was really when my game started taking the next level, but I can also say that not taking my fitness into account is ended up ending my career as a volleyball player. And I always kind of wonder, like, what if I had taken that more seriously and put in the reps in the gym when I should have been, instead of, fooling around, of what my volleyball career would have been otherwise. But then again, I would be here doing this with you. So take my failure and, put that into use for the good of yourselves.
We'll say found a different path, found a more focused path.
Exactly. So yeah, I think we are very shortly from bringing Thomas in. Just I think we just had Mr. Thomas Lamb join us. Will we be getting his hey, there we go. We're just getting his audio connected, and there we go. All right. Thomas, if you could just Dr. Lamb, if you could just unmute yourself, please. Everyone, welcome to the chat, Mr. Dr. Lamb, the director of FITS, and Dr. Lamb, welcome to the Titan Speaker Series.
I'm glad to be here, guys. Yeah, sorry I got a little bit late. Just a little bit of traffic and just getting settled in.
Yeah, no worries at all. We're only a couple minutes behind, but obviously, Mike Amoroso and I were just talking just as we were waiting here, about the kind of the importance of staying active, and how you can really focus on your body to achieve your goals at the next level, and how difficult that might have been at this time. So, from my understanding, you guys have been developing a new sports science app to help help athletes a little bit throughout this time. So, I was wondering if you could tell us a little about what that entails, what it looks like, and little bit more about it.
Yeah, so I guess starting kind of like from the beginning, we wanted to kind of like almost like figure out how do we actually create like world class athletes. Um, and it's almost as if this was like a perfect time because it really helped you to really rethink a lot of the ways in which there's so many opportunities like right now to really get ahead. And one of the biggest things that we kind of discovered on our way to kind of trying to help athletes get as far as they really could was recognizing that they kind of, aren't doing all of the things that they would, or that we, like maximizing their time, right? So what do they actually do in between individual sessions? How do we actually start to push information such that they become empowered and they actually can kind of take concepts and start to practice them in between respective sessions? So we recognize that, oh my goodness, we could actually start to leverage an app in a very, very different way. So it's not really like you just like follow along exclusively. It's a follow along that progresses into something where, hey, try to do these type of things and like based off these principles. And then to actually be able to do some wildly amazing things just because you are empowered to practice and do a whole bunch of amazing different things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do. So it's been pretty fun to kind of just start to rethink how we can kind of develop an athlete when we don't actually get the same touch points that we previously really would. So really excited to just talk more and more about this. Really exciting because I think it's going to evolve how athletes train. I should say it's going to evolve how we train athletes dramatically, and we think that it's going to make our athletes a whole lot smarter. It's going to get them to understand principles a lot more. It's going to empower them to be doing things at home with minimal type of equipment so that there really aren't any type of barriers to them getting better. It's going to help them jump higher, become way more explosive, way faster, prevent a whole bunch of like injuries. And it all begins because we teach principles a whole lot better than we've ever had. And that's really inclusive of all the athletes that we've ever really worked with. So I kind of feel that this model that's evolved is so much better than anything that we've ever done at any point. And I think that we've had a lot of really good success over the years. So I'm excited to kind of deploy this model inside of the Titans.
So let me, it sounds fascinating, by the way. So let me get this straight. You are employing a model that you're focusing more on the principles of movement as opposed to the actual movement itself.
Absolutely. So the first stage is really follow along. So we're going to guide all of our athletes through principles, standards, and cues. So basically, we're going to get everyone to squat great. We're going to get everyone to hinge great. We're going to get everyone to do single leg squats and really control their bodies very well. Once we kind of set a great athletic foundation, um, the this program very much integrates with an evolved lifting program. So then layering, yeah, resistance training on top of this, layering different things that we're actually going to be able to do once we're able to do them, um, like inside of like yeah, real formal type of training. Yeah, so it definitely gets me very excited that the principles will be taught right from the beginning, and it can all get delivered really through the app.
Wow. So how do these principles get introduced via the app? Is it a text space? Is it all video based? Is there photos? How will the athletes kind of receive the information and know how to interpret that, and do the exercises themselves at home? Sorry.
Well, that's so good. So it's multi-layer. So basically everything that you really said. So there'll be video components following along with different athletes. So we'll actually start to show you like errors. There'll be like knowledge-based quizzing. So athletes will just kind of be able to go through like testing their knowledge as well. But we really wanted this to be really fun. So it's not kind of like so much like a exclusive course. We also want to try to gamify the whole process as well. So as they're going through it, there'll be ways in which they can earn different points. And the whole idea would be to have seamless alignment with how coaches are actually being trained or getting exposed to these type of concepts as well. So it's also going to drive what happens in practice, what happens at games, what happens like post tournaments as well. So it's very fully comprehensive and very systematic by which they can learn all the principles at practice, like in between games, um, um, at home, and also like with their own sessions, and actually through the app as well. So it's gonna have a lot of different type of touch points, both from hands-on stuff, from principal stuff that gets delivered through the app itself, like through videos, and then through practice and exposures from them doing stuff like either on their own at practice or even with us.
Now, obviously, it's important to get to the athletes themselves, but you mentioned getting to the coaches. Obviously, working in a club system like this where there's multiple coaches across multiple age groups, how important is to get to them and teach them these principles of movement just as much as the athletes?
Yeah, well, they're front line. Arguably some of the most pivotal relationships with their athletes, and then having them understand these kind of concepts. I think they really already have a good pulse for many of these type of things. And I could honestly say that how like what the vision of where the club would be, and just kind of like how positive a lot of the kind of like feedback and kind of like where a lot of the coaches are kind of like in their ideas. These kind of concepts are very much aligned. And going back to your point, Everett, is like, yeah, getting them to really kind of put all of this type of information inside of like the practices, how they actually look for different type of control elements, how do they make them land better, how do they develop the shoulders. If we can have a systematic way that's very much aligned from 12 all the way to 18, and there's actually a curriculum and standards by which they progress, and every coach kind of understands that, hey, at this particular level, we understand that this is what we need to do to kind of get them ready for the next level, and then to the next level, and to the next level, and to the next level. Then we can have a very systematic way in which we develop our athletes. And I think that's something that's always talked about. But I think that we're going to be able to deliver on a great program that really is systematic and develops athletes in a very structured way.
So you talk about building out the program very systematically. What would be some of the early focuses for the program that you guys would want to try to identify and look at athletes and try to pass that along?
Well, the first thing you can almost like start to think about reverse, like going backwards from the most common type of injuries that the volleyball athletes have. So we're really talking about ankle sprains. We're talking about the plethora of knee problems, from jumper's knees to osgood problems to even the more disastrous ones like the ACL ruptures, right? And they plague every single club. We're talking about low back injuries as well as shoulder type of problems. So right off the bat, we need to kind of figure out ways in which we can kind of target those areas, make those areas strong, make the areas that need to be mobile very, very mobile, and then develop the control levels so that it can match the demands of the respective sport. So being able to handle swinging, let's say like 100 times within practice, right? And then also being able to have the sports science to help coaches, um, you know, have a bit more awareness as to how many times they should be actually swinging, right? And actually, like what should be some good type of practice guidelines from an exposure perspective. Likewise, jumping's a very, very high intensity level type of activity where you could easily say that well over 4 to 6 times your body is landing for even like this, the lowest level of athletes in terms of like the verticals, really in an instant. And how do you actually control those levels of forces really on the body? So I think that without a question, that's kind of like where we first begin is looking at the risk factors for common volleyball injuries. And then once we start to get there, then we can get really exciting. Then we can go into flight school, start incorporating other type of lifts, and then starting going after expression standards. So how, like what types of levels of power, vertical explosiveness can we begin to develop within our athletes?
Wow, that's great. That that seems that's fascinating. I wish this kind of stuff was around back when I was playing volleyball, but you know, cell phones were barely a thing back then. You mentioned, obviously quite a bit of this has to do with injury prevention, and that's essentially why the strength and conditioning part of volleyball is such a massively important part. But you mentioned being able to troubleshoot poor movement patterns via the app. I would love to explore that a little bit more because obviously it's way different to do the exercises by yourself as opposed to doing it in a team setting where maybe you've got your coach or you've got a trainer like yourself who's able there to watch over just to make sure that everything's happening properly.
Yeah, so one of the simplest strategies that we have, it's called the law of the lines. And it's just really simple. In every single thing that you do, just make sure that a line from your foot, your knee, and your hip is always straight. So it never buckles in. You have a belt line and a zipper line, and you make sure that those are never tilted, right? And almost when you start to do that, we're kind of like making sure that our athletes are starting to become aware of where they are in space. The biggest 100% the biggest problem that I commonly see with athletes is that, in warm-ups and things like that, they kind of just go through the motions and they're really never on board. When you
Mm,
start to teach these laws and these major principles, you dramatically change their intent because now it's backed by principles and knowledge. Without intent, that starts to drive awareness, habits, higher levels of execution. Then all of a sudden, they can kind of start to connect some of the dots that are then further reinforced by what the coaches are starting to explain when we're all a big gigantic team and we're very much aligned. We'll start to use video as well to start to showcase exactly where they are in landing. We'll encourage them and we'll provide them with, just direction on how to use tools like apps and mirrors and such to kind of like film what they're actually doing. Because I really feel that empowering our athletes to kind of like do this, yeah, they'll take the initiative to kind of start to watch themselves kind of like do these things. And then honestly be the most important asset or tool, which is really themselves and their knowledge and how they actually understand and apply these kind of concepts. And I kind of feel that that's honestly one of the things often is missing most in programs. And on the strength conditioning sides, I could easily say that 70% of the like of a group, if they're not really taught well, they won't have any type of intent. They won't be dialed in like whatsoever. So if we can kind of raise that number because we're providing all the principles and knowledge and kind of like get everyone kind of like thinking a particular way, we can increase our intent. And then within that intent over time, we'll get way better results.
that's great. That's very much like a coach's approach to teaching the game, but through a physical movement piece. I really love that. You mentioned taking the initiative. Is the app going to be something that is going to allow maybe with someone who's curious to kind of look through it one day and maybe learn something, try something new on their own accord, as well as do the group stuff along with the team?
Absolutely. So glad that you actually brought up that huge part. I'll kind of like say it like this. you can imagine that the first person that surfed 100-foot wave, the first person that did a quad, all of these were masters in their respective sport, but they wanted to push the boundaries even further to a place that no one's ever done it before. So it's not as if they read a book or did anything really around that, but they built off of principles and what their coaches were able to teach them. But no one's ever coached any of these other world mind blowing type of things. So at some point, the athlete, the student becomes the master, and the coach isn't on the field when they're doing all these things either. And so then the whole concept is you want to teach them, build them all the right principles, and then allow them to play, allow them to kind of explore novel and new ways. And I think that that's what's happening in strength and conditioning as well, or at least like really for us, is that when you have a good athlete and they understand the demands of their sport and they want to kind of begin to evolve and they feel, hey, these are kind of like where my weak spots are, right? We want them to start to be empowered to explore and to really try different things. So if they start to recognize that, hey, one of my biggest problems is my shoulders not strong enough, right? And I'm kind of like doing this. I need to do more, right? The tool will actually be in place where that they can add a module, let's say like shoulder control to what the team may be doing. They could adding another shoulder module, let's say like 2 or 3 more additional times throughout the week. And then they can begin to pick and choose different exercises, but also to modify those exercises um, to make them even more applicable to where their perhaps weaknesses would be. And that will become really clear, really in like level 2, where then we actually really want them to try more variable, like add variations and variety into their workouts. And just apply simple like principles into what they're actually doing to kind of make their exercises from becoming, hey, that's a good exercise, to becoming an exercise that's really specific for what I need.
Wow. So that graduated system that you have, is that something that's going to be graduated based off of the year that they're playing, or more of a on an individual basis? Because I could definitely see maybe you have an athlete that comes onto your team at say 17U or 18U, and they're more it's a more high performance team, but they're coming from a club that doesn't offer all of this. Is
Mhm.
there a way for them to get age group who isn't quite as athletic and is looking to kind of revive some of those, is there abilities to go back and relearn some of the principles from younger ages per se?
Yeah, so there will be a very defined, clear roadmap that an athlete can begin to, hey, jump in where they're at to almost like have a baseline. So if we're kind of speaking about like say like a 17-year-old athlete, they could actually see where they're at and then progress really from there to kind of, if you will, catch up. um, and other times, like we've kind of like seen some of the craziest best athletes really needing to kind of regress to a platform where that they would actually start from the beginning, if you will, right? And the most amazing thing that we've kind of found out with the standardized approach is the really good athletes become better once they can kind of start to build their principles once again, so from their foundation. So it's almost as if like the 17-year athlete that's, if you will, trying to play catch up, right? They've already got to this respective place because there's some qualities that they've been able to, allow them to get to this spot. So they're actually be still able to improve even just by going back to the basics and then building really from there. This is athleticism. So um, if you build your base well and you take your time, it dramatically raises the ceiling that you're able to achieve. And at this respective stage, because they're still all young, even up into that 18U period, um, there's still lots of time to really set that foundation in place. Just so happens if you start younger, between like that 12 to 14, you're going to have a gigantic head start over over everyone else. So that so I'll say like the system's in place to give you a very good roadmap, no matter where you are, to go where to go where you want to go. And it's flexible enough that yeah, you can start really whenever.
Wow. So how are athletes going to interact with this? Are they going to be able to sign on with their email? Are they going to be able to sign on as a group, as a team? You mentioned that there might be maybe like a point system or reward system. So how are the athletes, going to interact on a day-to-day basis with this app?
So yeah, so signing up is the first bit. Now that'll get kind of like rolled out like shortly. Once they sign up, they'll actually have about 20 minutes or so where that they just get knowledge, just to, hey, before you guys get started, these are the most important things for you guys to learn and understand. Once they've kind of finished that, boom, they're ready to get going. Okay, so depending on their respective starting point, they'll be able to go. And typically, it'll go at least 2 to 3 times per week, where that programs will be kind of like sent to them to just begin to follow, and then they'll just like really follow along. Once they've kind of taken a quiz, then they can go to level up to number two, and then they'll be able to engage with it um, pretty yeah, like pretty much like on a 2 to 3 time per week schedule. And then the way that the system is, it constantly kind of exposes them to new and new, like more and more different things as the weeks go on by. But I'll probably say this is that the goal of this app isn't for it to be like a standalone thing. It's really much to be very much aligned with the entire experience, the entire sports science, athletic development experience, really in at any place within the entire club. So it supports, as well as kind of in this case gives additional training to what's already being applied like in person, because it almost would be like this: there's not a single app that could teach you how to play basketball, volleyball, play a respective sport. In many cases these things are supplementary to the coaching that needs to take place. So I think that's an important feature to kind of like or disclaimer, because the app is really powerful, but it's so much more powerful with the hands-on sessions with our team.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I want to get into that in a second, but real quick, is this something that coaches are going to be able to kind of check in on their athletes and see how they're doing?
Oh, absolutely. So the fun thing is that weekly we can report how many, what's like how many of the athletes have actually done their respective work that they really should have. Likewise, with the gamification side, is that those that have done it will start to earn points for themselves, points for their team, points for their.
So it's a team thing as well as an individual thing. Oh, that's even better, because then you can start talking smack to another team, being like, "Hey, we're working way harder than you guys in the gym. I don't need IG. I've got the app."
um, regional as well. So East, West, Central can kind of, have some bragging rights, some kind of like, you know, friendly competition like throughout it. So yeah, so the kids will be able to see not only what their team is doing, but other teams as well. And I think that that serves a good point, because um, best practices about, like, because yeah, we got to have good drivers in this. And I think a coach is in a great position to help drive a lot of the, like, how this program can kind of really get off the ground. So if they kind of start to say that, oh, wow, yeah, let's beat this team. Let's kind of like show, let's get all aligned. We can have some nice friendly competition along the way.
That's great. I think that's awesome. That's a perfect way to do it. Show off that workout a little bit. Now, you mentioned how important that this isn't just a standalone thing, and how important it is to have kind of those in-person sessions. Obviously, the state of the current world that we're in, and this perpetual lockdown that we're in, isn't forever. Hopefully, we're hoping. But what does that look like potentially looking forward to the next few months at, coming into fits at Downsview and getting some of those in-person sessions in with you guys?
Oh, yeah. So I think some information we'll be able to share like shortly. So really, because we're a clinic, we've been able to stay open like through this process. So if an athlete has a particular kind of like need to, from a development or from an injury prevention standpoint, both our physios and chiros can kind of accommodate for those respective needs. So that's like something easy just to kind of give us a shout, and then kind of we can definitely take care of you even up to small groups of 3 as well. So that's pretty nice. That's a way in which we can kind of get the ball rolling. Likewise, the reality, like with Zoom and everything else, we're gearing up to basically provide that for the teams, so that no one gets left behind, right? So everyone is actually going to be, we're going to try to take care of them, and then as the lockdown becomes eased and life becomes better and better and practices begin to resume, then we can start to implement these kind of things in person, right? So the timeline gets me excited because it feels like things are getting better, and I kind of feel like before you know it, hopefully there will be some, the athletes will be able to practice, sometime in the near future. So we're pushing hard to get everything ready for to get this off the ground.
Absolutely. Mike, I was wondering, do you have any questions coming from the director of the Central Division?
I wouldn't say I have questions. I think comments more so, just touching on a couple of the aspects that Thomas mentioned. One being the ability for athletes to enter into the program at different levels based on where they are individually. I think is a really important one, specifically because as we grow, launch, and develop the Central Division. One of the aspects that's going to be happening for athletes as soon as this upcoming next season is our integrated 17U and 18U high performance teams that are coming together from East, West, and Central, and in a lot of cases those teams might look different. Well, I'll start with they will definitely look different than the athletes we've experienced the year before, having been part of a West group, an East group, or a Central group. But also what that means for the athlete that is committed to their performance and development, is that they have a program that works entirely together. So we really want Titans to be a one-stop shop for your needs as a high performance athlete. So at the moment within the club system, and I'll look across the province, and I'd say most clubs exist in a system where you have your practices, and you have your practice coach. So that's your resource for a lot of things that they should be, and then a lot of other things that they probably aren't the best suited for. For example, coach, my shoulder hurts. How do I address that? Well, that's not necessarily a club coach type of question. Even if that coach has expertise in that area, that's not something that they haven't taken on the role as a medical professional working with you as an athlete or your coach. What we want to provide is, or I shouldn't say what we want to provide, what we're going to be providing for athletes coming through the Titans programs is, if you're playing at a high level and you want to pursue the sport at a high level, within the structure of the Titans, you have the person to go to when your shoulder hurts. You also have the person to go to when I want to get my shoulder stronger to hit hard. You also have the people to go to that says, how do I make my arm do what I want it to do to create this type of spin on the ball? Those shouldn't all be the same person, but they should all come from the same club. And if you've been part of a Titans program in the East or the West for your youth development years, or I'll even go farther back as far as grassroots programming coming out of any of the 3 divisions, if you've come out of this system, then you should be on your path as best as you can to be gearing towards those elite teams if that's what you choose to follow. Now, if you're not interested in pursuing a high performance team, if you're not looking to be part of a team that's bringing the best athletes in the city together, that doesn't mean that you won't still get opportunity and access to be able to learn to be in that pathway. So Everett, as you mentioned, there are athletes that start at different levels of development. Some succeed quite a bit when they're younger. Some don't find their success until later. If I use my own personal example, I didn't start playing club volleyball at all until grade 11, and then found myself some good success in playing the sport as a but at whatever stage you enter in, you should be on the same page with everybody else on your team. So I can look to my left and I can say, you know, Cameron, I'm going to pick on you since your name is up front. Okay, well, Cameron Nifton's been part of a Titans program for 5 years, and I've been part of a Titans program for 1 year, but at least today we have access to all the same resources for me to catch up if I am behind. So Everett, to your point about having different entry points within the program, different access to resources, depending where you're at, and especially is something that volleyball athletes love to talk about, which is technical development. How do we get better technically? How do we get smarter technically? How do we make better tactical decisions based on our technical progress? Well, if everybody in the club has the opportunity to be on the same development pathway, and if our elite athletes that want to pursue the best have access for everything they need out of Titans, I don't have to think so much about, all right, well, my strength and conditioning coach over here at the YMCA taught me this, but they don't know how much I'm jumping at practice. They also don't know that I do small group private training sessions on Wednesdays at this location over here, and they also aren't tracking the stuff that I'm getting from my physio over in this other category to strengthen these other weakened areas. You can already see there's a lot of hands in the pot. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So we want still a lot of cooks in the kitchen. We want the whole kitchen to be Titans. So we want everybody on the team to be cooking the same stew, which is ultimately let's get athletes as far as we can take them. Let's be the stop that covers all of it.
Honestly, that's crazy that you guys are offering your athletes so many cooks and so many different types of cuisine, if you will. You know, that it's really crazy, the fact that they can be taken care of both when they're hurt and they're injured, which obviously is important, but obviously I think what's even more important is helping them not be injured by understanding how to use their body. And that is it's so useful, not just on a volleyball level, but for any sport. And just for even if you don't want to be like, you know, Mr. Amoroso here, who played for Team Canada, played at Queen's University, played professionally, even if you just want to play the game for fun, that's such a knowledgeable and usable thing to have throughout the rest of your life.
Absolutely. I think when we look at what athletes today want, and then also what they need, quite often those two things end up falling pretty well in the same category. So as an athlete, we want to perform our best. We want to play our best on game day. What we need might be a whole lot of things that I might not necessarily want to spend time on. As a great example, cool down. We don't need to do a show of hands as to which athletes or coaches on this call like spending a lot of committed time to really focus on a well-structured and organized cool down. But we don't need to do the show of hands, because I've been in enough gyms to see, especially in the wintertime, parents are holding the keys, they want to get in the car and go. Athletes are getting their boots on as we're closing up. You're jumping in the car, you're sitting there for 30, 40 minutes. You get home, you eat, fly through your phone a couple things, you're in bed because you need to go to school the next day. So you might need that, but needing that actually gets you closer to what you want, which is really just performing well, playing well, and be better at the sport. So rather than having to source and find out 15 different places for where you might get all those needs filled, let's just fill them all here with you. And I think the other aspect that's really important to cover is beach athletes. I mean, if we look across the Titans Club, but also if you look across the whole GT area, the number of athletes that are truly, even though we don't identify them as such, two-sport athletes within volleyball is colossal. I would guess at this point, almost more club athletes play both sports than don't. Now, even if you play,
And you
even
should,
if,
by the way.
and when you look at what you're getting from your club season, if club indoor volleyball is your main sport, and summertime is your off season from your main sport, but you get opportunities to play beach, you do a couple of beach camps. Well, if that's your down season, and you have goals for high performance in indoor volleyball, what do we need? What do we need to do from our side as the Titans to make sure during your off season from indoor, you're getting what you need to make you best in season for indoor, and that what you're doing on the beach side is also within our knowledge pool, so that we can design workouts, so we can design training for you, so that your program can be catered to cover what you need. You play beach volleyball to get better at volleyball. You play indoor volleyball because you have aspirations, play post-secondary, get a scholarship, and pursue indoor volleyball. That's great. You can do both, and we can cover you for both. Now, if you want to pursue sand volleyball, we can cover that too. And I think this is something we can jump into in a minute about just a couple quick intro pieces for our future high performance athlete program that we're forming here at the Titans. That's suited both for our high performance teams, but also for individual athletes that are coming through. So I'm not sure, Everett, if you want to jump to that next, or if you have any questions.
Well, absolutely. Well, I think before that, just get back to Dr. Lamb. Is there anything that we missed on the app side of things? Or, is there anything that you would kind of bring up? Just, I feel like we probably hit all the points, but I'm not the one who's created it. So I'm going to throw that back to you to see.
No, I think we really covered it. The only one thing that I would say, most apps sit isolated and don't really have this complete integration inside of a club. And I honestly would say that from the formative years all the way into, let's say, like the 18U period, um, this gets me absolutely the most excited. We've had a lot of success across every single sport where we've kind of started from reverse engineering the very, very best and tried to figure out how we can actually get them there. So let's say that's phase one. Phase two is very much, can we actually pull this off? Can we actually take the group of athletes and produce world champions, Olympians, professionals? So I'll just share this kind of like one really quick story. 11 of our starting basketball athletes, six of them have gone off to the NBA. And since then, we've had 14 NBA basketball players that we've developed throughout it. And I would honestly would say that everything that we've actually put inside of them, right? This app trumps all of that because we're actually starting with principle. Likewise, several of our starting volleyball players have gone off to become world champ, at the junior levels, at the highest level, at the FIVB type of level, and many different type of scholarships. So again, phase one is reverse engineering the very, very best. Phase two is actually making sure that we've actually done it. This gets me so excited because I've never actually been able to implement something at the grassroots stage where we're going to have so many years of great development where it's all integrated. And so I'm totally stoked, totally happy. Like nothing makes me happier that this is where you want to kind of be, because I like to think that we're one of like the secrets in the city that no one even really knows about us like too much unless you're at a particular level. And now we're actually going to make it so that everyone that's part of like the Titans will actually have access to all of the unique secrets, all of our unique proprietary ways of actually developing our athletes. But more than just the secrets, it's about just good, solid principle work over time. And you don't even have to stress out. You're going to get there. Now we actually have enough time to actually build it all out. So we're not just picking from the very, very best. We can basically take almost anyone and almost assure them that they're going to have a very, very solid opportunity to play post-secondary. Either like almost be able to pick and choose almost where that they want to go, whether that they want to stay here, or they want to pursue other type of opportunities. I think that's a very realistic opportunity for most.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Lamb, I really appreciate you taking the time. I think we're going to be talking to Michael Amoroso about the Central Division. So I don't know if you want to stick around for that, or
Yeah.
if you want to, yeah, stick around for that. But thank you very much for taking the time to explain the app. I am very jealous that I'm not one of a Titans athlete, and is playing it right now, because I feel like this would have been great for me. And if you guys are watching this right now, take advantage of this, because this is sweet. Like, this is next level stuff. You heard it from himself. Like, NBA players do this, so you should do it as well. So, Dr. Lamb, thank you very much. Now, moving forward to Michael Amoroso and the Central Division, you mentioned how the Central Division is going to be into focus on those 17U and 18U high performance teams. Break us down a little bit about the Central Division and what your role there is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So if we're looking at the division as a whole, the division will be operating very similar to the way our East and West divisions operate right now. So obviously, of all the seasons to be launching, being one that the OVA doesn't have competition, I would say has it's given us more time to plan, be organized, and prepare. It
It's a
hasn't given
soft
us,
launch.
yeah, we'll call it a soft launch. It hasn't given us the opportunity to dive in the way I particularly like to dive into things, but nevertheless, so grassroots programs, select programs, which is something that we're hoping to roll out in September, and I'll kind of bear in mind for all of these, for those on the call, in terms of times, dates, anything to do with cost, all of those questions are unfortunately just going to have to wait while we keep getting provincial health guidelines outlined as to what we can do, what we can't do, and when we can push forward. But select programs for grassroots athletes from across the city to be able to do a bit of competing with each other and create our own select league within the city. And then club teams housing at the youth age and developmental ages, where the Central Division will have some really neat opportunities on the high performance side, is that we're also going to be we'll call it the hosts for our 17U and 18U high performance teams, which are the planned combining of athletes from our East Division, West Division, soon to be also Central Division, 16U athletes, along with athletes that come to try out and have an opportunity to make the team equally as well. These teams, along with being sort of combination teams of the top athletes of their age category, they're also going to come with added resources as well. So we're looking to have a full suite of practices every week, but also additional training on the weekends done with high performance coaches from the club that are specialized on technical and tactical aspects. The technical content that athletes that they're learning on these weekends, those are also going to be in line with what athletes from all the younger ages are being taught, so that you truly are on the next stage of your development. But beyond that, where I get really excited for the high performance teams is that their program is also going to be fully integrated with what Dr. Thomas Lamb is doing with FITS. So if your average club week schedule isn't going to look just with, well, this is when I go to practice, and then I can maybe go for extra training here and then find anything else that I want. No, your high performance week schedule is going to look, these are the days I have the practice. These are the days I'm at FITS on location, training with Thomas and his team. These are days that before my practice or after my practice, we're doing extra physical work as well. These are my requirements to have when I'm not at practice, that are integrated through the app, things I can do at home, additional exercises for athletes to do. And this is my season plan across the year. So I can look and see, all right, well, I can see this part of the year where I'm going to be a little bit more tired, a little bit more fatigued, have a tougher schedule in terms of my in terms of my OVA competition. So this is going to be a sucky week of practice. I'm not going to feel very strong, and these workouts are going to be tough. And that's okay, because I saw it on the calendar and I saw it coming. I knew this was going to be a down week. I know I am feeling tired. I know I those last couple reps of hitting high balls or those last couple defensive movements were extra tiring for me, because that was part of the plan to have me peaking near the back end of the year for the competitions that our season's goals are geared towards. And we're also going to have an opportunity, along with athletes that are part of these high performance teams. We're also looking to identify, and this will be something that, as I mentioned, over the next handful of months and into next season, we're going to be rolling out with coaches, high performing athletes that work across the club that want to stay with the team that they've been a part of, or maybe if they're a younger athlete or coming or transitioned over from a different club. Athletes that have high aspirations and potential as identified by Titans coaches are also going to have opportunities to be part of an individualized program that helps get them on this total athlete model as well. So that if I'm a 14 and under athlete and I play indoor, I play beach, I'm doing quite well. I've been identified as someone that's got a lot of potential, and I'm realizing that potential by putting all the work in that I can and trying to be the best athlete I can be. Well, you could be identified to be part of an elite program within the Titans that puts you on this pathway even earlier. So if you are a 12, 13, 14, 15 and under athlete, and you're looking ahead and saying, well, I'm here now, and I want to be, this is where I want to be by 18U, this is what I want to be doing in post-secondary volleyball, we can get you onto that path early. And so that more comprehensive total athlete program that's geared towards individual athletes, indoor and beach, is something that we're also going to be launching, hoping to launch, hoping for everything, hoping to launch in the fall. But really something to make it customizable. So as a high performance athlete, you can do what, frankly, what national team athletes do right now is they get a schedule. Their schedule tells them where to be, what times to be there. They know what they have to bring. And then they can go in with full trust and say, as long as I do my part and work my butt off and put myself in the room with the knowledge that I need to get as far as I need to go, as long as I check those boxes, I can trust that everything else has been taken care of. For our 17U and 18U athletes, that'll also look like greater support for your recruiting process. So if you're looking to be recruited, if you're looking to play volleyball at the next level, the same deal. We have the capacity within the Titans and are really excited to launch that capacity to help get you where you want to go. So if you're an elite athlete or a high performing athlete and you have a plan, we're going to be there every single step.
It sounds very much that you guys are, for lack of better comparison, creating almost like a AAA hockey model, where you're having an aggregate of all of the top athletes, in within your club come to one area, and you're giving them a very comprehensive A to Z training schedule, and not only schedule but taking care of all of the other components. Is there a mental training aspect to that high performance training as well?
That's a great question. Absolutely. I think that's going to be something that that as athletes, I'm sure, have seen over the last 10 months. It's amazing what different factors in our life can do to our mental state in sport. So right off the bat, our motivation to get workouts in, our motivation to get better, our ability to pay attention for long times, especially in a lot of these types of video formats. Those are all tests on your mental strength and fortitude as an athlete, the same way they're tests of any other aspect of what you do in life as well. Can you stay attending? Can you stay focused on a video training session? Because can you stay focused on a home workout if you know, just as has been laid out, this will get you where you want to go. This will get you closer. This is making you better. doesn't mean it's not hard to do. Mental training is going to be a significant aspect of this program. Also nutrition, injury prevention, just anything that falls under the category of will this make you a better athlete or a better player? All of that's going to be housed under the same program. So in terms of the frequency of how often athletes are going to be flexing their mental muscle, I think anything along the lines of scheduling is something that we don't want to put a schedule out now and structures now that are going to have to change as soon as the regulations change. But replicating that four ball trainings a week, 2 to 3 physical training sessions per week, additional sessions on other weeks that cover aspects like nutrition, sleep, hydration, what you're doing to flex your mental muscle, video analysis for a volleyball athlete, and the ability to watch video and identify what's doing well and what's not doing so well. Those are things that make a total athlete. So that's, but yeah, Everett, I appreciate you queuing me up to get more excited about the program, because you can see I'm quite excited.
Yeah, I can see that. I feel like you've been a little pent up the past few months as you've been getting ready to release this. Now
we want to play. We just want to get back and play.
Man, I feel that. I mean, I know how I feel, and I couldn't imagine being 14 to 18 and being as active as these kids are and not being allowed to play.
We'll get there. We're getting there.
Now, it's obviously for the Central Division, it's a little bit different because you guys are new. You touched on a little bit earlier. The same types of programs will be offered in the Central Division to kind of bridge that gap between Scarborough and Etobicoke, essentially.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some revamping on a lot of the types of programs that happen across all the divisions, so that they stay pretty well uniform. But so grassroots opportunities for athletes who are entering into the world of club. Club teams. So club teams, ideally starting from 11, but we'll say 12 to 17U age categories, or sorry, 12 to 16U age categories as well. And then for those 17U and 18U teams to also have those be kind of part of that Central Division. And then I think there are a few other programs that I would say we're hoping to launch as part of the Central Division, but that will end up being part of the other divisions as well, which would mainly be geared around giving our athletes an opportunity to get more competition against each other at younger ages. So giving them the chance to, the only way you can find a match as a 14U athlete is if your coach can organize a scrimmage, or if you drive however far you drive first thing in the morning on a Saturday to get your tournament. So
that, honestly, I'm going to cut you off because I can't, it was so frustrating for me as a young athlete to go from I'm playing soccer, I'm playing hockey. In both of these situations, even at just a house league level, I'm playing games at least every single week. And absolutely, I definitely agree that practicing is maybe more important than playing. But one of my biggest pet peeves about volleyball is the fact that there is such a little competition. And it's not even competition, it's just the chances to play the game. Mm-hmm. And enjoy the game and develop that love for it. So the fact that you guys are offering those opportunities to play the game outside of just an OVA competition is massive in my eyes.
Yeah, I would say so. So yeah, in terms of programming, I don't want to spill too many of the beans on this call as well, because I've got about 3 or 4 other programs that we're excited to launch that frankly would take us straight until tomorrow morning, and we would have no participants left on the call by the time I was done. But I think we have time for maybe one more question or one more closeout aspect, Everett, if you want to. take us there.
Do we have any questions from the chat?
You know what? I see
From
one, which is what area of Central Toronto will be targeted. The short answer would be between the east and the west. So I would say kind of with the heart of that being between the major highways. So kind of DVP 404 across to Highway 400, just in terms of geography in the city. Obviously, Toronto's a large and spanning area. So if I was going to touch on regions, I would say North and Central Toronto, North York, East York, kind of trickling down towards the beaches on the west end, trickling down towards Hyde Park in the west half of North York as well. So it's a large region. There's going to be some crossover between, like we're not planning to build walls or put up fences. So there's likely going to be a little bit of crossover, especially as you get to the east and the west ends. But really what we're looking to offer is programming that you can trust within the center of the city, but then also a convenient home for those high performance teams to be able to come together and work.
Fantastic. And I'm guessing the Central Division can be found all on the same website.
Yeah, so we're going to be releasing information over the next kind of couple months as we get opportunities to prep for next season. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it from me. Just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight for the third installment of the Titans Speaker Series. Big shout out to Dr. Thomas Land from FITS to coming and explaining the new app. Honestly, like Titans athletes are so lucky to be getting this kind of stuff. Like I'm not even like no cap. If I use that right. Big thanks to the Central Division Director, Michael Amoroso. Of course, big shout out to the big bosses, Mr. Blair McIntosh and Mr. David Pagnolo for setting this all up. And we will see you next week for the fourth installment of the Titan Speaker Series. My name is Everett Delorme. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Everybody.